First of all, welcome and thank you very much for joining us for this awesome webinar we're going to have today. We're going to go through scraping. So scraping 101, it's going to be a little bit like starting from beginners. So if you're kind of an amateur scraper or you're already a professional, a lot of the stuff that we're going to discuss today, you'll probably already know. But I'm going to start from like the basics, and then we can move into something a little bit more complicated. And of course, we'll do a Q&A at the end. And if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. So first things first, what is scraping? So scraping, basically, it's very straightforward. What web scraping means is collecting data from websites en masse, and that it's automated. So every time, the reality is that if you go to any website, like this website here, and if I just grab this like that and I copy and I paste it into an Excel sheet, you're basically scraping the internet. The only key difference is that when we say web scraping, usually it's automatic, number one, and usually it's done by a robot. So it's not manual, it's not a human being just copy pasting data points, but it's being done automatically through the system, okay, through a robot. So that's basically web scraping. Now, web scraping actually came into light, when it was created was back in 2004. It was a library, a Python library that actually created this whole idea and kind of started moving this forward. It's grown a lot in the past decade or so, and it's become something that almost all companies use on a day-to-day basis. So if there's any type of information like job listings, eBay prices, and competitive research, stock information, anything, any data, any information that you're getting from the web on a day-to-day basis, that could and should be automated and scraped automatically and sent to you in like a nice little Excel sheet so you can kind of read it. And I'm going to go into the details of how we can do that. So in order to understand scraping better, we need to understand what we're scraping and how scraping robots actually work. Okay? So how scraping robots work, and this is very important to understand, especially when you're using tools like Hexact, when you're setting up your own scrapers, the key thing to understand is how website structures are built, okay? The robot is not going to actually go in and read the content. It's going to read the code, so how it's structured, or what we call the different HTML elements, so the different elements in this code. So let's say, for example, we want to scrape this site, quotes.toscrape.com. Now, this website itself is actually set up as a example for robots to scrape. So it's almost like a testing site to see if the robot that you want is actually working and working properly. So if this is the website we're looking to scrape, for example, so what do we want to scrape here? Well, we do want to scrape, of course, the quote. Obviously, we would also want to scrape, right, the author. So first things first, I'm just going to show you how this website is structured so you can understand what I mean when I say structure, right? So let's say I want the quote. So I'm just going to mark the quote here. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to click on Inspect. When I click on Inspect, it's going to pop up the code on the right side here, right? And that little green line that's marked, that is this specific element that's marked, right? So it's span, so that's how it's coded, and the class is text, right? And if I open that up, the little arrow, it'll actually show the text underneath it, which is the quote that we're trying to grab. So span, class, text. Just remember that for a moment. The reason why this is crucial is because if I go down here and I grab the second one, the second quote, and I tab it and I do inspect, it pops up as exactly the same element, span, class, text. So what this means is the box up here and the box down here are coded as a same HTML element. Okay, now if I open up this, it'll be the second quote, right? It's our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. So this is very crucial to understand. It's crucial to understand because when you go and start scraping this site, as long as every single one of these quotes is coded with this same line, the robot will be able to identify that and will be able to scrape the content inside, in this case, the quote, right? The data point that we're looking for, in this case, the quote. So how that works in action, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to go to Hexact. I'm going to go into scraping recipes here on the left side. I'm going to click on create new. I'm going to plug that in, and I'm going to click on preview. So load it in. Now, when I click on this first one right here, and I do select all, what that means is I'm telling the robot, select all of the elements in this website that are structured the same as the element I just clicked on. If I do select all, bam, on the right side here, it found 10 items. And you can see if I scroll down and I just hover my mouse, all of those quotes are marked in green. And again, the reason why all of them are marked in green, the reason why the robot can find all of them is because in the website, they're coded the same way. It's the same HTML elements over and over and over again. Okay? So I'm just going to name this quote, save, and then the author, in this case, Albert Einstein, again, select all, bam, found 10, perfect, Albert Einstein's sample value. And I'm going to call this author. And I'm going to save that. All right. Let's just call this quote scrape. All right. And then I'm going to save. There, quote scrape. And now that that scraper is set, I'm going to go into workflows, create new, and I'm going to plug that in from my scraping recipes, not an automation, but scraping recipes. I'm going to plug in the quote scrape, which I just created. And I'm going to do continue and run now. And what that will do, now the robot is going to this site. It's looking for this HTML element, all of them that exist on the site, in this case, 10 of them, because it's 10 quotes on the site. And then it's looking for all of the HTML elements that correspond with this one. And it's going to pull all of those and put it into an Excel sheet, just like this, export, and we'll get the results. So the reason why this is important to understand is because although on a basic level, it's understandable. It's just the quotes and the lines like that, right? Quotes and the authors, very straightforward. But the important thing to understand is now that I've built this scraper, this bot, this little robot that knows the structure of this site, right? I taught it the structure of this site. Now, as long as the site doesn't change structure, I can scrape this over and over again, which also includes, for example, I'm just going to click on next here on page 2, right? Or page 3, or page 4. They're all structured exactly the same way, which means I can grab this, page 4, and I can come back to Hexomatic, and I don't have to create a new recipe. The recipe that I've already created will work across all of the different subpages in the same website as long as the subpages are structured the same. In this case, they are. So in this case, what I would do is I would click on workflows, create new, and I'm going to, instead of starting with the scraper, I'm going to start with data input. And I'm actually going to input that URL, page 4, and let's just do one more for fun. Let's do page 6. There we go, page 6. And I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to plug it there. Okay? And then I'm going to do plus sign, scraping recipes, and the scraping that we just created. In this case, it's asking for a source, and I'm going to say grab the source from data input. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm telling, listen, go to this URL, this subpage, and run this scraping recipe, and then go to this subpage and run this scraping recipe and put all of the results in one Excel sheet, right? And it will work, the same recipe, the same scraper will work across all of these because they're structured in the same way. So understanding website structure is crucial to being able to scrape successfully and en masse, all right? So that's very important. So let's see what results that we got. There we go. Perfectly scraped, perfectly scraped. So the same scraping recipe worked across both of those URLs because the structure of the site was the same. Now, understandable that this is working off of, quotes.toscrape.com, which is kind of built for scraping purposes. But in real life, a use case might be, for example, eBay. A use case might be a job listing site. A use case might be a retail a real estate website. So any website basically that has multiple sub pages that have the same structure, you can create one scraping recipe and then use the same recipe over and over and over again for all of the different sub pages that you're trying to scrape, right? So again, I'm just going to show this on eBay as an example. But the name of the product is obviously something we're going to want to scrape. I'm just going to inspect that so you can see how it's kind of coded in the line right there. So span class equals UX dash text span, UX dash text span dash dash bold, and so on. And if I open that up, there's the text on the bottom, right? Very straightforward. I'm going to go to the other one, another one. Let's say Nike Air Max. Again, I'm going to inspect. Bam. Span class, UX text span, bold, Nike Air, and so on. So again, it's the same element here, and it's the same element here, which is understandable because it's structured exactly the same way. The same goes for the price and the price. The same would go for the pictures. The same would go for everything that you see here. Description, customer also buys, all of this stuff, all of this data down here, all of this data down here, they're all structured in the same manner. And because they're structured in the same manner, all I need to do is create one robot, teach the robot once the structure, and then just feed it URLs or feed it subpages, and it will continuously, and scrape and send, scrape and send, scrape and send, and it'll work over and over and over again because the HTML structure is the same. So this is sort of scraping 101, if you will, in general, what scraping is and how you actually should be thinking about structuring your scrapes and how do you grab data from different sites. Last but not least, when it comes to scraping, there are also automations that are pre-built into the system. For example, let's take Google Maps as an example. I'm going to go to Boston. I'm going to go to Boston because I'm from Boston, so a little bit hometown boy there. And I'm just going to type in, I don't know, let's say fintech company. And it's going to load in a bunch of results, right? So when it's loading in a bunch of results like this, so on the left side here, these are all of the results. And if I click on any one of them, it'll open up a bunch of data points about that company, right? So the name, it has the address, it has the phone number, it has, and so on and so forth. So it has a bunch of information about that company. It has a picture, the phone number, it has codes, it has reviews, their review score. So all of this stuff. Now, hypothetically, I could come here, click on fintech company, and then just copy paste all this information, but we can also scrape it. But instead of building your own scraper to scrape this site, always double check the automations here because there's a lot of things that we've already pre-built for you, so you don't have to spend time and energy actually building that scraper. So for example, Google Maps, if I just type in maps here, there'll be a Google Maps automation. And if I click on that, create workflow, it'll plug it into my workflow. And all it's doing is asking you for the keyword, fintech company. Just like I did with Google Maps, right? How many results do you want to get? Let's say 1 to 100. I'm just going to do 1 to 10. Select the country, United States. And then you click on continue and run. So what it's doing right now, it's basically running that same scraper over and over again because the information here, and if I click on the third one, numerated, structured the same way. If I click on Bix Incorporated, structured the same way. And every single one of these will be structured identically. So when it comes to popular websites like this, we kind of already pre-built that for you. There's also very simple tools that you can use to get this up and running quickly so you don't have to create your own. So that's sort of the gist of it in terms of scraping 101, just understanding what it means. Scraping is pulling data from the web en masse and automated through a robot. You have to understand HTML structure. So always remember that it's all about the structure of the site. If the structure is the same, you can use the same scraper over and over again. If you go to a different website, obviously you have to create another scraper because that structure is going to be different. But if the structure is the same, again, you can run the same one over. All you have to do is just feed it URLs and it will continuously run and continuously use the same scraping recipe. And last but not least, just legalities. Don't worry about it. We have worried for you. So if it loads in Hexomatic, it's legal. If it doesn't load, then most likely that website does not want to be scraped, so we won't actually scrape it. And last but not least, always check the automations in Hexomatic, because within the automations, there's a lot of stuff that's already pre-done for you, and you can just kind of plug and play, and you don't have to create your own scraper. So that's it for today, guys. 15 minutes is up, so I wanted to keep it short and sweet. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any. Please either drop them in the chat or raise your hand or whatever it might be, and I can take some questions now if you have any. A quick reminder for everybody that just joined us: I'm plugging in calendar link in the chat, so make sure to go to that calendar link and book a time. The key thing is, this is sort of like a tradition already, that every time we do a webinar, all of the participants of the webinar, if you click on that link now and you book a time, you're going to be one of the founders of our company. So it won't be like a salesperson. It'll be a founder, and you can talk about your case and what you want to scrape and what you want to get done. If there's any questions, then I'm more than happy to answer. How do I scrape Google Maps for multiple cities or zip codes? Kurt, very good question. Let me show you how that works. So if you want to scrape for multiple cities, what you would do is, let's assume we're scraping for Boston, right? So like that. Just going to zoom in. All right. So let's say this is the area that you want to scrape. In Hexomatic dashboard here, I'm going to go into automations. I'm going to go into Google Maps. I'm going to do create, plug into a workflow. Any keyword. I'll just do fintech company again. So here on the bottom where it says country, instead of selecting a country, you would just click on this little icon and it'll go to coordinates. Okay. And coordinates is going to ask you for 3 inputs: latitude, longitude, and zoom. And how you get these inputs is you actually go to Google Maps. So let's say what you see on my screen, the box that I'm seeing on the screen of the map, is the area of the map that I want to scrape. In that case, on the top here, you'll always have your latitude, longitude, and zoom number right there on the top every single time. So I'm just going to grab that first number. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it into latitude. I'm going to grab that second number, always with the negative sign so that it knows which hemisphere we're in. We're going to paste that into longitude. And the zoom number is just the next number over. In this case, it's 11.38Z. So that Z means zoom. In this case, let's say 12. I'm just going to type in 12. So right now, I gave it the coordinates. So what it's going to do is it's going to come to this box right here. It's going to type in fintech company, like that. And then it's going to scrape all of these. Everything that you see on the left side of the screen, it'll scrape all of those. And you can do it closer. If you want to do it like zip code by zip code and not just for the citywide, then you can just zoom in like this. And let's say this is the box you want to scrape. Again, it doesn't matter. You would just plug in these coordinates in that zoom. So every time you plug in a coordinate and zoom, it will scrape that part of the map with using that keyword. I hope that answers the question. Thanks for the question, Kurt. Cheryl, tell us about the micro SAS class if there are no questions about scraping. Cheryl, that's a very good question. So let me get back to that. Let me just answer a couple of scraping questions and I'll get back to the micro SAS. All right. When you scrape images, What does the image get downloaded? Google Images was an option. Yes, Google Images is an option. What it will do is it will download the image and it will send you a link. And if you click on the link, it will be a link to that picture. Of course, we can't put the photo into an Excel sheet, but we put the link to the photo in the Excel sheet, and you can either then mass download it or just use the link in your backend system and have that image somewhere. Okay. Do you have a free trial or free credits to try scraping with Hexomatic on my pace? Vahan. Thank you for the question, Vahan. So how we operate is we really don't like trials. So what we have is you pay and you buy a subscription up front, and we have a 30-day no questions asked refund policy. So my recommendation would be buy one of the packages, start playing around with it, and within 30 days, if you're unhappy at any point, you can always send us an email or talk to the support and just say, I know I'm not happy, I want a refund, and we will refund all of your money back. So instead of doing a free trial and giving you like 5 days or 7 days to play around with, we give you 30 days to play around with. That's the idea. Can I put, all right, behade. Can I put in 2 words a domain and a noun auto, something like this? Capita semtech.com capita. The results I want are TF that have 2 came up in the same Google search results. Behade, but it's a very, your use case is very narrow and it's very niche, which is great. My recommendation is definitely book a demo. Use the link, book a demo, and we can spend 30 minutes actually looking through your use case in much more detail. I'm going to put that link once more in the chat. Behade, book a demo, and we can go into the details of your use case. Okay? Thanks for that. Tina, thank you for the demo. Is a spreadsheet the only place where the data is collected, or are there other options? No, there's other options. So you can either do a spreadsheet like this, like a Google Sheet. You can download the CSV, or you can download the JSON if you want to use it in an API. Awesome. There are also options where you can, it really matters what you're using. So let me just show you on the integrations. If I go to the settings here on the left side and I go to integrations. So if you're using Make, like Integromat or any SQL database, Zapier, Integrally, Pably, so any one of these like RPAs, you can also connect to the RPA, and then the output of the scrape will get automatically sent to the RPA, and then you can kind of send it to wherever you want to through that system. So that's also another option. Thanks for the question. I'm so sorry. I'm going to mispronounce this name. Nguyen. I'm so sorry. Google Maps search results normal caps at 10. The system automatically goes to next list. Yes, it doesn't cap at 10. If you it's an infinite scroll, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like if I just scroll down here, it'll just pop up more. If I scroll down, it'll pop up more results. And if I scroll down, it'll pop up, and it'll just keep going until it runs out. Like here, it ran out basically. So within this box, because I'm very zoomed in on the map, there's only like 15 results off a fintech company. But obviously, if you like go United States and you write fintech company, there's going to be thousands of, hits. It'll just keep basically going until it runs out, or it hits the maximum result threshold that you inputted in the beginning. So it's batches of 100. That's how Google Maps works. So it's 100, 200, 300, 400. So that's how you should be thinking about it. You can either cap it at 100 or cap it at 200, or you can just say go all the way to 700 and give me everything you can. And so that's sort of how it's going to operate. Can you set up multiple automations? Cameron, thanks for the question. Can you set up multiple automations to run in series, e.g. fintech companies in Boston, New York, Dallas, private equity in the same city with an output to one document? That's a very good question. So no, what you can do and what I do, I use this a lot for like lead gen, and I kind of, scrape these businesses for lead generation. What you would do is you would basically run the workflow like this. And then I set up this first workflow, and it has Boston, right, in it. And I know that I want to do Boston. So let me go back here. So I would name this like FinTech Boston. Okay. And then on the right side here, there's a little three dots, and I click on that, and I would duplicate workflow. So that's going to copy paste the workflow, FinTech Boston. And then I would rename that. Oops, sorry. Wrong button. I would rename that to like, for example, let's say biotech Boston. And then all I would do is I would go into that workflow and change the keyword from fintech to biotech. And then I would duplicate the workflow and then keep the fintech and then change the coordinates for the other city and so on and so forth. So that's sort of how I play around with it. That's how I do it myself. Thanks for the question. Kurt, don't you also have a workflow to find emails after scraping Google Maps? There's an automation. In the automations, there is a scraper called Email Discovery, and you can add that after Google Maps to then automatically go into the websites using the domains of the companies and trying to identify email addresses. That's correct. We ran through that workflow on our last webinar, so definitely go to our YouTube channel, Hexact YouTube channel, and check out that webinar, and it explains it in very, very much detail. Okay. All right, guys, I think that's about it. Thank you very much for the thank yous. I appreciate it. Great seeing everyone here, and have a great day. Bye.